Lovely little image there. So there's chaos behind the scenes at Spider-Man 4 because, of course, Madame Web came out and was an absolute joke. It's caused a ruckus in Sony and Marvel because if you look at what both these companies have on the docket, the only good thing each of them actually has, Marvel, they have Deadpool and Wolverine, but after that they've got literally nothing anyone is interested in. Literally nothing at all. And Sony only has the Spider-Man 4, right? Like that's the only thing that Sony has that people, have paid good money for. So they're starting to argue about it, apparently. Pretty big. So what's the deal? So Marvel and Sony Pictures, apparently there's conflicting visions for both the release date and creative direction, also who's going to direct it. This is all alleged. But I can believe some of this stuff. So apparently Sony is keen to rush Spider-Man 4 into theaters. It's not really a rush though, because the last one came out in 2021. That's not really a rush, is it? That's quite a while ago, to be fair. But yeah, so Sony wants John Watts back, who did Homecoming, Far From Home, and No Way Home.
Yeah.
Huh? What?
Yeah,
he did all three. Yep.
So why would you not want him back?
Fantastic Four.
He's successful. Like, of course, you'd want him back. But apparently, Kevin Feige wants someone else on board, Drew Goddard.
Of course he does.
Because apparently Feige wants John Watts on other MCU stuff. But they're like, well, no, because this guy's handled Spider-Man nicely, so come on.
Well, John Watts withdrew from Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
He probably figured out what they wanted to do and was probably like, F this. Yeah, count me
I will
out.
actually go farther as to say that he found out that they weren't going to let him probably do Spider-Man 4, and that pissed him off, maybe.
Well, here's the fun stuff. Spider-Man franchise producer Amy Pascal wants Feige to be involved with future live action Miles Morales movie.
There'll be adjuncts to it.
That's all they've got left in their Spider-Man-less Spider-Verse over at Sony.
Yeah,
Miles Morales is Miles Morales.
Yep,
that's what she said.
But
Miles Morales movie, yeah.
It's looking like that's going to be soon because recently Pascal said about a live action Miles movie, until we make 2 more movies, someday, we're very happy doing the animated Spider-Verse movies. And then Chris Miller, who did Spider-Verse, clarified and says, when she said not until we make 2 more movies, she meant beyond the Spider-Verse and the live action Tom Holland film. And Tom Holland's even come out and been like, yeah, I would be honored to help bring Miles Morales to the live action world. How we do that, I don't know. But given the opportunity, I would jump at it. Yep, the opportunity just to give your job to someone else, I guess. Hand me down. So there you go. Look, they're just bickering about it, bickering about the direction, bickering about release dates, bickering about, directors and all of this kind of stuff. It makes sense, though, because my God, can you imagine being Marvel, right? You've only got one movie that anyone is bothered about. Deadpool and Wolverine. That's all they've got. After that, they literally have nothing. You look at what's coming out under Marvel. It is... No one cares. No one cares about it.
It's also in development hell. I mean, how far
I think
along...
both studios are in such disarray when it comes to Spider-Man. That's the problem. Go ahead, Culture. Sorry.
Yeah, but Tom, no, you're 100% right. It's broader than that. They're in disarray when it comes to superhero films. Nothing that they've put out has delivered. The audience is not there. It's why they're attacking the audience. I mean, some of the stuff that's coming out of the recent leaks about executives and things, just, calling us all ists and phobes because we're not going to swallow the, alt leftist pill, and they're really pissed off. They don't want to placate the 54 to 57% of the audience for these superhero films that are male, and they really are angry that you're not just chugging down all these female feminist things. They hate it. So, they're stuck. They want to make their stuff. We won't watch it and it won't make money. So, yeah, they're all in turmoil. So they're back on, I don't know how many scripts it is for Captain America Reshoot Fest.
Yeah.
And, because nobody really accepts Falcon Cap as Cap.
No.
And then you've got, whatever they're doing with the Daredevil thing. They had to start. Yeah, thank you, Chris. They had to start from the beginning there. And then what's happening? I mean, on the DC side, I have almost
Commandos, Superman Legacy.
We're gonna touch on that a little bit later, Coach.
Yeah. So my whole point is, they're in such an amount of turmoil right now. They can't make a movie. The last thing that they share this with Sony and Disney, I don't believe they would ever be able to agree on a direction now. I think this is gonna cause a lot of trouble. They're gonna fight over this character, and it's gonna harm everything else down the pipe. I could be wrong, but it just makes sense.
What's bad about this is the Spider-Man property is so valuable. I mean, it's up there with Batman and Superman, right? Globally, it's so recognized, and
technically, I think it's surpassed all of them now.
I would not doubt that.
Yeah.
Shout out to Matt McGlowan over at Cosmic Book News for this report. I meant to mention this earlier when we said something about the awards, but it's still relevant now. The Annie Awards, 51st Annual Annie Awards, which award the best in animated film, shut out first time in 32 years Disney and Pixar, and Across the Spider-Verse won for the best animated feature. That was just a couple of days ago. So Spider-Man is a beloved character, and the last thing they need to do is keep watering it down with Kraven the Hunter, Madam Web, Carnage, whatever the hell else they've got, Morbius in the pipeline. And you're right. Nobody cares about the Thunderbolts or Captain America 4 or anything else they've announced. Wakanda Eternity for 3, none of it. The What If TV show, the Disney Plus shows. It's honestly like they have not figured out that they are producing material that no one wants. They just refuse to produce the kind of material that we do want. Even She-Hulk, going back to that, I hate to keep dipping back there, but they could have had so much fun with She-Hulk, but instead they decided to, shame the people that used to be fans of the original comics. So I'm here for it. Let them burn it all down. I've still got my Blu-rays, I've still got my comic books.
And then I hate when they go back to this whole superhero fatigue thing. I think there's just superhero fatigue. No BS, guys. If you brought back Chris Evans, Cap, Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man in a movie, it would do $1 billion. And completely prove that whole point wrong. I mean, everybody knows the truth here. They just fail to recognize it for some odd reason.
Well, they knew that when No Way Home came out. I think they were following up the Eternals movie or some other piece of garbage that had just come out, and there was already the rumblings about superhero fatigue, which you have to understand, this is all a business, right? So the reason some of these movies continue to get made is the people who made them need to get paid, or they need to get to this point where they've at least achieved something for all of their work. They're going to get that damn movie done if it's the last thing they do. Doesn't matter if it's Madam Web, right? It doesn't matter if it's a piece of garbage, but Madam Web is Sony's Batgirl, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, they should have just pulled the plug on it, and they did not. So I think also, I'm a video producer, so I know that a lot of times you're in the thick of it, so you can't really see the bigger picture sometimes to what you're making, and sometimes you don't see that until you're in the editing suite. And there's just been too much.
Oh my God! Surely some of the have you seen Madam Web?
I've only seen clips. That's all I'm going to say.
Right. Well, then you've seen the clip. You can see how bad it is. What
I've
been
seen
shot at in Queens before?
Yeah.
You'd have known that this was garbage.
Well, I think Madam Web was just sort of we've got to keep these IPs going, and we've got to try to. I don't know what Amy Pascal was thinking. She needs Kevin Feige, but the recent decisions from Kevin Feige on the other Marvel properties don't instill a lot of confidence.
No,
for me either.
No, not at all.
I would say that, yeah, 5-10 years ago that may have been true, but now that we know that Kevin Feige isn't really the magic sauce,
yeah,
they just need the MCU is what they need. And Tom Rothman's the kind of guy, he don't want to deal with this shit. And all Madam Web is another notch to prove to him that they can't do this on their own, especially Amy and anybody else who's involved with this Venomverse shit or whatever you want to call it, because that's what Andre has dubbed it.
Yep.
And because she technically had nothing to do with Madam Web, but let's be real, it all started under her purview. It was her pushing the idea from the start that I want an all-female led spider team. Go. Right? Like that was the whole thing. So at the end of the day, Tom Rothman's the kind of guy, he's going to look at that and he's going to go, no. And I think that a lot of the stuff going on behind the scenes, because here's the thing, for some reason, they did not produce Across the Spider-Verse Part 2 or Part 3, whatever the hell you want to call it, because it's a 2-parter sequel.
Yeah.
They didn't make them at the same time for some asinine reason.
Yeah.
They made the first movie, set it up for a sequel. Something happened behind the scenes that stopped production. Because the actors said that they hadn't even recorded their lines yet. And then you have, this stuff where, here we are 3 years on. You'd think by now we'd be starting to hear stuff about the next Spider-Man movie. In fact, we should be getting the Spider-Man movie right this Christmas here in theaters this year. Pretty much somewhere around there, 3 to 4 years is about the longest you want to keep between these movies, right? So something's been going on. And I'll tell you what's probably been going on. Amy Pascal. Because she's been trying and running interference from the start. It is no secret. Whatever she said about wanting to work with Kevin Feige, she's lying through her teeth. Because she has said that several times before that she didn't want to do that until she got chewed out behind the scenes. Yeah. And then basically learned her lesson, because Amazing Spider-Man 2 was one of the biggest black eyes in the history of like, how do you take Spider-Man from one of the biggest franchises in history, reboot him within 5 years or whatever it was? What was it, 5 or 7 years? I can't remember which, but either way. And the first movie did okay. It actually did okay. People accepted it. And I was surprised by that. And then you turn around and make Amazing Spider-Man 2, which was just unwatchable.
Hot garbage.
It's hot garbage. And what is the rest of this stuff we're getting out of them? Hot garbage. It's the same type of hot garbage.
Yeah.
Venom is the only exception to the rule. But a lot of that you could probably chalk up to just because people know who Venom is.
The second
one is, I guarantee you the third one's not going to perform nearly as well as the first two. Because that second one probably turned a lot of people off. You're right, Nate. And here we go again with this. So he's going to be just like, make this deal with Kevin. Amy's probably been trying to run her bullshit behind the scenes again. I have a feeling that's what's been going on, because it was a few months back. Tom Holland, I think, said something else, something similar about hoping Sony and Disney work this out so he can continue to play Spider-Man, even though I think he's only got 1 or 2 more appearances left in the MCU, and I think those are meant for Avengers, the next Avengers film.
But he wants work. I mean, every time I hear an actor,
it's not just so much that he wants work. He wants to work in the MCU, right? He wants his Spider-Man to stay in the MCU. That's what.
Well, he can also negotiate a much higher rate, every time they bring him back, right? If they want to have him. It just always amuses me, like Oscar Isaac was saying, oh, yeah, I'd like to see Moon Knight jump in on the Spirits of Vengeance or something, with Marvel. And I'm like, well, that's not going to happen. You just want more work. But I think that Sony's problem is they do a lot of teasing and they never really quite can commit. Just like you said about the next animated sequel, that doesn't make any sense. And even in the Morbius trailers, there was some poster of Spider-Man on the wall of the alley, and at the end of Venom 2, didn't Eddie Brock get knocked into the multiverse or something, and are they not gonna land that? Are they not gonna stick a landing on that? Of course not. That was just to tease you. That was just to make you think something.
Well, that's
big is
Amy Pascal's shenanigans. That's what I'm talking about. We even heard it from some of the actors and people involved with Madam Web. They were like, we were duped. We thought we were going to be in an MCU movie.
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, and if you notice the way the movie is, I haven't seen it. For those who have seen it, I'm sure you could tell me or not, but from what people have been telling me, and I think you even said something similar to this culture, where you can almost tell like this stuff probably was in the movie to begin with, but they were forced to remove it. Like they couldn't actually name Peter. They couldn't have May's name. They could refer to her, but they couldn't actually say her name. Now, Ben wasn't actually in the Spider-Man movie, so they could actually use him, for instance.
No, but they say Mary Parker. They call Peter Parker's mother.
Mary Parker's different, though. She wasn't visibly in the MCU movies. And here's our understanding of why we have 25% different MJ and all these other characters. Is because what they did was, okay, you got Spider-Man and Peter Parker, but Amy Pascal pulled a fast one and says you can't use the original versions of these characters. You have to use different versions, because her plan was to pull and yank Tom Holland's Spider-Man out of the MCU, continue to make Spider-Man movies under Sony, and then as far as the general public knows, they're still MCU movies. And then she could use whatever character she wants. Why do you think that they keep, I guarantee you that's a stipulation that comes from her or somebody around that team, where they're saying, because you notice at the end of the last few movies that they're set up in a way to where he can go off into his own adventure somewhere completely new. So that to me is
why the Homecoming or No Way Home looked like, well, that might be the end.
Yeah, and he could meet a completely new Mary Jane, not MJ.
Oh, fight all new villains, right? Fight a bunch of new villains like Morbius. And
why do you think they probably kept out like some of the bigger villains and kind of kept them in argument and limbo, like and stuff like that? So that's a very big possibility.
Yeah.
Because my understanding is, even though Sony has the license, once they use certain things in the MCU, they're off limits to their Venomverse crap.
Yeah. Kalechi Oki chimes in with this for $5, says, hopefully I've pronounced that right, dude. Says if Disney had any sense, they'd let Sony flop around with Spider-Man until ultimately selling it back to Disney Marvel. Sony sucks at writing movies.
That's what they should have done instead of buying Fox.
Yeah.
Instead of buying Fox, they should have just bought Spider-Man, paid whatever $30 billion that Sony would have took to make it happen at this point.
I will argue Marvel's also pretty bad at writing movies at the moment as well.
They are, but Spider-Man is the best Marvel movie in how long?
Yeah.
Long time. That also kind of opened up the door for Andrew Garfield and
exactly
Tobey Maguire.
You could have a whole series of Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, because everybody was like, as bad as Amazing Spider-Man 2 was, after No Way Home, people were like, man, I'm completely on board if he comes back and does a third one. If they do it justice and it's actually good, but people were at least open to the idea at the time, because everybody was talking about it. About Raimi coming back, doing another Spider-Man 4, then Amazing Spider-Man 3, and then Tom Holland Spider-Man continues. All these happening in their own universes. It was literally set up for Sony to do 3 separate Spider-Man universe movies and kind of keep them going, where they could have made bank on that. But what do we end up getting? Madam Web? Oh,
it is.
Geez.
It is. Well, Mr. L has super chatted $3 and says, back during phase 1 to 2, I would never have believed we would get an X-Men Fantastic Four in the MCU. Nowadays, I don't care. The MCU I loved back then is not the MCU now.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's what I'm saying. It was like a waste of $70 billion. So you got the rights to Star Wars. I mean, the actual first movie.
Yeah.
Bravo. You've done nothing else with it since. You haven't made an X-Men movie. You're finally getting to the Fantastic Four, which honestly, if they'd have just sat around, those rights would have reverted to them eventually anyway. So like this whole thing is so stupid, right? And like at this point, the X-Men was already so well established in its own thing to where they could have done some more X-Men stuff in that universe and meandered for a few more years. Anyway, all you needed to do is just inject it with some fresh blood, like a new voice. And I'm sure somebody would have loved to have gotten their hands on that first class of X-Men. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Look, there was a lot of room, and there has been a lot of room for them to do better with what they've got. But largely, outside of ignoring the Fox properties, I would like to say that I'm grateful because all they can do is damage them, and we're about to find that out.
Yeah.
You know, I just does it surprise me that Disney and Sony are at blows? No. But then something else that, Nate brought to my attention today. So they're at blows over one thing, but now they're buddy for something else.
Yeah.
It's like, all right.
Yeah, paying Sony to do all their home stuff.